No one likes to go into battle with fresh troops. So when you have people reassigned from retail, they don't really know how digital works, or they know digital in a very limited way. We've seen a lot of e-commerce or digitalization projects fail because I think the main culprit tends to be the misjudgment essentially of what it takes to be successful in e-commerce. And most of these large companies needs an executive sponsor and needs executive sign-off.
Hello, Anirudh.
Hello.
Thank you very much for being here with me today. Anirudh, you're the country head of Anchanto in Singapore. Your journey in tech began in business roles before you took an entrepreneurial leap a decade ago. You co-founded Bixera. Bixera is a loyalty and promotions platform for malls and stores. And after 3 years, you made a difficult decision to move on. And this is when you joined Anchanto. So you started with Anchanto in India, in our Indian office in Pune, where you built the customer success operations. And then you relocated to Singapore. In Singapore, you drove the business development in the country, but you also took the lead on the expansion into Indonesia and later on in Korea. Today at Anchanto, you're known as one of the enterprise guys. So you're the go-to expert for brand commerce topics, omnichannel solutions, etc. So usually large-scale deployments, regional, global. So you've been working with companies the likes of L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, HP, but also logistics players, Toll, Renus, these kind of companies. I wanted to sit down with you to hear insights on how brands behave today, also on the status of e-commerce and retail, and also what's next, what are the best practices that you've seen working with these large brands. First off, to begin, what kind of shopper are you?
I'm not a very good shopper, especially if my customers looked at me. I'm definitely not their ideal type of shopper. The volume I buy in is like pretty low, so I prefer.
You're a minimalist?
I think having too much stuff makes me a bit anxious sometimes, so I try not to buy too much. I usually buy in store, but then I think maybe I'm like an ideal shopper for sort of their future state. So I'm a very good omni-channel shopper, I would say. So discovery for me happens on multiple channels. And then, but the actual purchase happens in store a lot of times.
So you spend your time looking for information, then identifying the right bargain, and figuring out, okay, this is now the time to go in store, or it's more about just making sure that this is the right purchase for me. Now is the right time. Let's go.
Right. So I think I'm a very conscious shopper. So I buy less, but I try to buy higher quality stuff. So the first part of it obviously is the discovery. So it's not whether it's like the right price or good value. I try to also find out a little bit more about the product. So all of that discovery for me happens online through either like text or video. Again, I'm not on any social media, so I guess my video consumption is mostly on YouTube. And then after that, then I try and decide whether I really need it, and then eventually I get around to buying it.
So the way you describe your purchasing behavior shows also the complexity. I don't think you're the only one. It's not straightforward like, oh yeah, people go on marketplaces, they find the product or online, etc. So I think that's a good segue into my first question about the evolution of e-commerce in the eyes of brands and retailers. So you work with very different industries. FMCG, luxury companies. How does this perception differ from one industry to another? And are we reaching kind of a common state now in 2025?
So first off, I don't think there is a common state. Second is, over the past few years, I think my understanding has also evolved of these industries. So to look at the industry as the industry itself is not very nuanced. So usually what I prefer to do is that if there's a framework that I can apply, it would be applying all of these different industries, which is like cosmetics, could be CPG, could be fashion, etc., along like three sort of lines. So the first one would be mass market, second would be mass affluent, and the third would be luxury. So brands or like sub brands within these umbrella brands tend to react quite differently as they fall into these three different segments. So that's essentially how I would look at them. So typically, anything that's mass market, their uh, focus tends to be on looking at e-commerce as a sort of a multiplier. So they want to drive more volume, they want to drive more efficiency because they believe that the cost to serve tends to be lower because there's a less sort of capex involved in these channels. Their and again, by extension, their focus tends to also be just on price, on making sure that they're able to drive the right volume through the right channel. So they're sort of agnostic of the channel. So when it comes to products that fall into mass affluent, the tendency there is that they look at e-commerce in through two lenses. So one is the third-party marketplace, which is the existing third-party players that they drive, which is the marketplace model, and they also do D2C. So they need to find sort of a balance between both because each one serves a different purpose. So they are in that sort of process of trying to find the exact right balance for them. When it comes to luxury, usually they look at online as a way to extend their reach to their existing set of customers or to develop or to kind of poach customers from like competing luxury brands. So their focus really is on building digital experiences online and also the process of delivering those experiences. So anything from white glove service to concierge services, things like that. So their view is to digitize those services to make it more efficient.
And do you believe there's still a strong misconception about online commerce today within these industries? Typically, maybe luxury took more time to get there. Does this still exist?
I mean, yes, it still does. So if you look at again across these different segments, there are players still in the mass market that look at e-com or online as like a dumping ground. It's less so now, but that's the case. Within the sort of mass affluent sort of category of companies, we still see that people are thinking in two different directions rather than like a cohesive one where the D2C folks are on their own, the marketplace folks are on their own. And this we see quite a lot, specifically when it comes to footwear. The entire teams are different. It's a whole different political organization. They're not really sharing resources, knowledge, nothing. And in luxury, I think the still certain misconception, part of the misconception seems to be coming from the fear that online will dilute brand equity and
is that true?
Brand positioning. It could be true if online is not really used the right way, because luxury is also like it's a sort of a range, right? So you have like extremely expensive products, and then you also have sort of expensive but not like super expensive out of reach products. So it depends on where you sit. For some people, it does dilute the brand. So because if you come a little bit further down in luxury where they depend on volume, then there is a fear, and definitely it's justified that it does dilute because you feel like you lose control over the price, the perception of the product. But that's also brands doing it to themselves because they are selling in such large volumes. So I think there is that fear. In the very premium end, I don't think there is a fear because they're not really doing much anyway. So yeah.
And I think it was a question and a topic I wanted to cover later on, but you mentioned it a little bit about who owns e-commerce. You were talking about it in this shoe company, for example. Yeah. There's this recurring topic that I see when talking to different brands. It never really sits in the same place, it feels. Are you seeing something actually more structured? Because sometimes it's, we still have this channel conflict appearing. So there's the online sales and then there's offline. Sometimes it's very centralized in HQ. Sometimes it's we let the regions or the countries kind of be very independent on that front. So how are the most successful brands maybe organized around that?
So again, I think it's not like one approach that we've seen, because we're still in the process of discovering the best way forward for ecom. This is like sort of a common nightmare for us, because like as someone that, like, let's say wants to do GTM, RTM, whatever it is, even our ICPs are not always the same. So sometimes we're selling into supply chain, sometimes we're selling into IT organizations, sometimes we're selling into purpose-built IT organizations, which is a digital IT organization. And sometimes the champions are very diverse also. So,
and does that say something about the maturity of the project in different companies? Can you kind of assign, okay, if it's supply chain team taking care of it, it means that the company is at that level of maturity, or if it's IT, if it's marketing, if it's, I don't know, retail?
yes, I think you can extrapolate that. My assessment would be, let's say a project has a champion that's like either supply chain or finance. They tend to be more mature in terms of how they're looking at ecom holistically. If they tend to be further down, maybe commercial teams, marketing, etc., they would be sort of less mature. For me, marketing essentially is the lowest rung because it is very transactional. So they're looking at systems to immediately increase ROI on purchase, which is not logical, and it doesn't really work out that way. Again, if I can generalize, normally what you would see across the three segments that we're talking about is when it comes to the mass market products, it tends to be sales and operations that run ecom, either separately as a digital organization or within the same retail organization. Then for the mass affluent, typically we see separate digital teams that are sitting. So you'll have like a completely separate set of resources, either shared across retail. If it's a smaller setup, it's shared across retail and online, or like if it's a larger setup, it's specifically online. With the luxury ones, what we've seen is that it usually tends to sit with brand. So the brand teams, the marketing teams, typically they'll have one or two roles which are like digital consultants or digital experts or so. But typically that tends to be a more junior role that kind of rolls up into the brand teams.
Okay, so we were talking about this level of maturity. So today, so Anchanto offers a wide range of solutions for all the backend operations. So it means that we do meet companies at different level of maturity. What's the most common scenario that you see today for brands, or what are they worried about for the future? We know things move extremely fast in e-commerce. So at Anchanto, we say all commerce is e-commerce. I see, even if this still happens offline, so I'm at my customer's place to sell you to do clienteling, and all my systems are connected so that in my store, it's the purchase is locked. Is it also this definition is kind of the same one for these companies? You know, or is it just a new definition of retail today? Or do they have like this global omni-channel perspective that?
So there is no one global omni-channel perspective. Yeah. I think if you trace it back to the assumptions that maybe omni-channel was built on, which was to serve every customer in a consistent way, and to make sure that every customer, every prospect has a consistent experience of the brand. This was based, obviously that was one assumption. The second assumption is like sort of hyper-personalization, right? So you want to be able to, how do you serve, let's say Charles as a customer when he walks into the store, the same way if he's not in the country, he wants to purchase online. It's about having that first-party data and making sure that first-party data is available at every point of sale with information on what it is that you like, etc. Right? So, so that was these two. I believe that these were the basis on which omnichannel was built on. Now, is it applicable to everyone? Probably not, because there are some products which are just mass market products where you don't really need that level of personalization. There are products and companies essentially that are essentially basket fillers where they will never have the need for personalization or like a consistent experience and so on. You're just looking at price efficiency, availability.
But there will still be this flavor of omnichannel, not on the same definition and the same conception, but still this flavor of operationally it has to work together, right?
Yes, operationally it has to work together. I would think maybe partly you are right. Eventually, maybe everyone will have some like flavor of it. It could just be probably the difference, maybe 10, 15 years down the line could be that there will be certain brands which will use hyper personalization as from a point of view of education or discovery, but they will not do it from an execution point of view. The higher end ones will probably do it also from an execution point of view.
Okay, so all of this does require good operational infrastructure, right? Working with these many companies, what's kind of the recipe for failure in failing a project of integrating all my backend operations, ensuring that this whole infrastructure works? What do I need to avoid, or what do I need to do to make sure I fail the project?
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen a lot of like e-commerce or digitalization projects fail. One, because I think the main like culprit tends to be the misjudgment essentially of what it takes to be successful in e-commerce. It takes a lot of work, a lot of resources, a lot of planning. It also requires like a top-down approach. So it needs most of these projects and most of these large companies needs an executive sponsor and needs executive sign-off. The window within which you expect to see results also has to be realistic. People tend to think that it's sort of a magic pill. It doesn't work that way. So one of the examples that maybe that comes up or used to come up quite often is when people are looking to kind of set up e-com in-house, they would ask for recommendations on who the right people would be. And eventually they would go and recruit someone from the marketplaces. So marketplaces would be whatever the names you know. And this is, I think, like a story we find happening quite a bit is that they go and hire someone that's sort of the head of category or the head of this brand or that brand at the marketplace. And it turns out when they come on, they're not as successful because one, the marketplace doesn't work like a traditional company, right? So you have a lot more flexibility. They have a lot more flexibility. So that is to their defense. But also on the flip side, they have a whole army of people that are working to make sure that that particular category, that particular segment is successful, right? When they come to this organization, they suddenly find themselves alone. And they've been assigned resources who are not essentially like battle tested. So there's this thing like, I was reading this book about it's some sort of military engagement, and this guy, like the common theme was that no one likes to go into battle with fresh troops, right? So when you have people reassigned from retail, they don't really know how digital works, or they know digital in a very limited way, because before you go online, your digital folks are essentially, or maybe the marketing folks are a little bit different, but they're more account managers than executors because they're working with third parties and managing their performance. So that's a very different game from actually executing, because it's not a day-to-day. So I think these few things usually cause quite a lot of issue.
So how do I go around this? If I'm a company, I'm trying to scale online. Like today, I have my web store. I'm maybe a bit of presence on marketplaces via distributors in 1 or 2 countries. I'm trying to scale all this. I need to start somewhere, right? I need to find the right people or move the right people.
Yeah.
So how do I ensure that the team is successful? Who do I surround them with? Who do I make them work with? Or what are the profiles I should find?
So I think, again, like a generalized view, like if, let's say I had to do it and just across these 3 different segments. So when you look at the mass market ones, again, mass market is also like a whole range, right? So I'm not talking about basket fillers. Basket fillers.
What is basket filler?
So basket fillers tend to be products that you fill your basket with. Literally, that's what it means. But what it in actuality, what it would look like is that you never go online to a store to buy toothpaste.
This product
right?
alone.
Yeah. Or I think some of our customers may not be happy, but like cereal, right? So you're never ever going to a store, just online store, just to buy cereal. You're buying cereal, you're buying milk, you're buying fruit, you're buying bread, whatever it is. So these tend to be basket fillers, which means that the common understanding and acceptance seems to be that these are products which will never have their own D2C store. But they will not have, again, they will probably 10 years later, they will have their own D2C store, but for personalization. Maybe you want to like personalize the package or something, but these are one-off like edge cases. They're not really going to be for mass market commerce. Their mass channels will continue to be modern trade, regular retail, and so on. So,
or quick commerce today also.
Or quick commerce, yes.
Yeah.
Quick commerce is definitely something that is applicable for the mass market ones.
Yeah.
So for mass market, again, it's a volume game, right? It's efficiency, volume. So I would focus on trying, first from a strategy perspective, I would try to understand how do I make my existing channels more efficient. So first is obviously the storefront operations, which is you have marketplaces, you have, and marketplaces are a lot of work. It's again, not a magic pill. So there's cataloging, there's price management, there's promotion management, there's planning for sales, there is pretty much everything that you do. There's a lot of work. So I would focus on making that more efficient. And then also the back-end operations obviously need to also be made efficient, because your inventory planning, your inventory management, your fulfillment, your picking, packing, shipping at scale should be very efficient. So that would be where I would focus on if it was a mass market product. If it was a mass affluent product, I would focus on getting that mix right of marketplace versus D2C. So the first thing I think we would do, or I would do, is I would focus on building out the systems that act as a repository for the first party data, which is you're getting all of this data from D2C, you're getting all of this data from maybe some data from marketplace, etc. So you need to have a centralized system that's aggregating everything, not only orders and in like inventory from a execution perspective, but even like consumer data and so on that's coming in. So this would be the first step to then use this to kind of build out on the CRM portion or to build out a loyalty program, etc. The second thing obviously would be to focus on building. The first step to building out, I think, a stronger D2C, because that's the second focus that I would have, is to look at the .com, try to build more personalization, focus on the UX, focus on checkout, things like this. That would be the focus area, because again, this is in the context of my understanding that most large enterprises have very, very heavy and slow tech. So their storefronts, I know of some folks that who have like a code freeze for 5 years. So there's not really much that they can do, but there's other stuff that they can do. Like they can explore widgets. They can also build these functionality in downstream systems, which we've done. So there are cases where customers have come to us and said, we can't really change anything on the .com. So can you build this into your systems? So yes, so we've done that also.
Which is definitely required considering how fast
Yes.
commerce moves,
Yes.
right?
Because it's a yearly thing, right? So it's not like a 5-year plan. So typically, a good reflection of how people even look at e-com is like how they're creating their RFPs, right? So if someone looks at a 5-year time frame, you know that, well, this is
not
going to
succeed.
this, possibly not, because the 5-year time frame is long, very long for digital commerce.
We've seen Nike, which was kind of the gold standard of D2C publicly. Recent struggles and change of direction. In parallel, you have companies like L'Oreal, more quiet on this front, but that have made a very successful move to D2C. What made it so successful from your perspective?
So I can't speak to a specific customer. So I can generalize and say that when someone's successful in e-com, and I would actually club even Nike within the same thing, you only have to look at like the easiest way, like secondary research. You go to LinkedIn, look at their sort of people, right?
Yeah.
You kind of, even if you look at like digital or whatever it is, you'll see the number of digital or people with digital in their title. So you'll realize that they have literally tried to replicate whole organizations within the digital organization. So you'll have like project management, marketing, supply chain, warehousing, pricing teams, everything dedicated to digital. And those are the teams, or those are the companies that have been very successful. So typically, even in, I think, even if you look at like electronics, there are some players within the electronics category that have built everything in-house, everything. They have like massive tech teams and so on, which is not efficient. And they've come to now realize that it's not efficient. But it sometimes also makes sense at scale, because electronics also tends to be sort of a low margin on some of the most of the segments. So it makes probably sense to do a capital investment and then kind of manage everything in house. But those are the ones that tend to be most successful. For Nike, I know that there's a lot of people that say Nike was not successful in D2C. I would argue that they are very successful in D2C. But I believe what happened is that they reached a ceiling. So they hit a ceiling. One, from again, what I understand. And second is that I also believe that there were other factors at play that kind of make them go back a little bit to retail and stuff. One is that their partners were unhappy, because people like Foot Locker and a few others. So if you keep ignoring your traditional channels, obviously they're going to be upset. And what happens when they're upset is that you lose that shelf space in store. So and then you also, I think, some relationships you cannot replicate. So there are some people that definitely have stronger relationships with different subcultures and so on. So they tend to, for example, have maybe better connect. And so you're losing shelf space even within that area. So that was what happened. And the last thing, I think, what happened is that, and I saw this, again, if you buy like Nike online, you'll realize this is not a realization, this particular thing where they realize that not all products are meant for online. And so you could see already, like the last few years, even during COVID and up to now, they've done some limited drops. They've made some products online exclusive. They've made some products .com exclusive. So they do realize that there is value in retaining control over the higher volume, higher value products with a dedicated market, which means you're not selling to someone new. You're just selling new products to someone that already exists. There's a lot of value in controlling that, keeping that data. But for the mass market products within your catalog, it makes more sense to do retail, because it's again about availability, it's about price, it's about being on shelf. So in that case, then it makes more sense. So I don't think they were unsuccessful. Yeah, probably if they wanted to go 100% D2C and kill all of their offline channels, but they didn't kill all their offline channels. They were in.
Some say they went a bit too far with also on the offline front saying I'm not going to sell wholesale and to retailers.
Possibly, yes. Possibly, Flugger. Yes. But I think it also could have been that during COVID, everyone saw massive spikes, right? So
yeah, of course.
Even on a larger base, because they'd been doing online already, I think they saw like an even bigger like spike. So, but anyway, like I think all of this is a process of learning, and it kind of converges to a point where both channels will be important, which is sort of online D2C, as well as online marketplace, as well as retail. Everything will sort of become, will have a place in the online strategy.
Talking about place, there's a newcomer over the past years in terms of channel. It's social commerce. Is it unavoidable today for brands to be there?
How I see brands have come to use them, I think will continue. Yeah. So primarily, again, mass market folks, actually, it's a process of discovery, experiences, and also channel for sales. Same thing with the mass affluent. For luxury, I think they're just going to focus on experience. So experiences, building out digital experiences through those channels, that sort of stuff. But everyone uses it a different way. But I think it's here to stay, mostly from a discovery point of view, because that's what people are consuming. There could be some space that they will give up to when it comes to search, because search is also getting better, like AI-enabled search, for example. Previously, search was just contextual, right? So you, let's say, look for you search for shoes. Maybe because your location's turned on your browser, your results will be contextual to your physical location. But I think that contextual search is also going to enhance. And so, which means that people get a lot more high quality, personalized recommendations and suggestions. It's not just going to throw back results of 10,000 results, but it's going to make suggestions. So that will erode into social comm for I think for some brands for sure. But other than that, I think it's here to stay.
Last question, Anirudh. Is there a brand, a company that you kind of recognize for the quality of what they've been doing in the space, in this omni-channel e-commerce topic, and that you would have loved to accompany throughout the project?
I would say my customers for sure. Yeah. So they're quite structured, organized, and efficient. And I think what I really appreciate about their approach is their follow through. So I think, just the customers that we have, again, this is a subset, right? Which is my customers in Singapore. So I can't speak to other customers in other countries for Enchanto also. Here we tend to work, like you said, with more enterprise, and we tend to do multi-country. So essentially like 6 countries, 10 countries, and so at a time. So they tend to be very large projects, well-funded, well-organized, well-planned, and well-executed. So it's always good to work with projects of that scale.
Thank you very much, Anirudh, for your time. Thank you for the discussion. See you this afternoon in office.
Thank you. Yeah, see you.